I need to learn how to say welcome to the Adam Savage Project in another language. Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
I'm Norm.
And I'm Frank.
Hey, Frank. Welcome back.
Hello.
Guest podcaster.
Yeah.
You're our only guest. You're the only guest we've ever had on this show.
Really?
Yeah, you're special.
This is my third time.
Yeah. Really? Oh, yeah, 3 times.
So I'm starting my own podcast.
Really?
Well, a friend...
Way to bogart our podcast.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm here to plug stuff.
Oh, great.
When does your album drop?
No,
$6.
our friend Len Peralta that you introduced me to had approached me about starting a podcast called Creature Geek. And we are going to talk about makeup effects and monsters and creatures and stuff. And that's going to start in October.
That's
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon.
Probably this week if you're listening to this show right now, or maybe last week.
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll probably post this after the first episode of your show is up, maybe the first 2, depending on how you guys are going.
The cool thing is that, Frank, you're going to be talking, and Len has a lot of podcasting experience. He's interviewed everyone for his Geek a Week card collection, but we're actually hosting your podcast. So if you like the stuff that we're going to talk about today, then check it out. It's untested. There's going to be a directory there, and you'll be able to find it.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
There will be a lot more of this. So what are we talking about today?
I think with Frank here, it'd be great for us to talk about the creature effects. And we were having a conversation over lunch earlier about just makeup for TV shows versus makeup for movies. And
Specifically about TV.
yeah,
There's
about
a difference?
TV shows.
Well, yeah. I mean, the schedule is different. The budgets are different. The way it's kind of shot is a little bit different.
Is it so like imagine so there's not a whole lot of examples where the same makeup's used in 2 places, but Star Trek comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like what about Worf? Like is Worf's makeup different for the movies than it was for the TV shows?
I mean,
Obviously this is a super specific question. Sorry.
I didn't specifically ever do Worf's makeup, but I would assume that the design is the same, but they probably make new pieces for movies versus TV. But I'm pretty sure that Michael Westmore was department head on both of those, so he probably just used all the assets that they have there at Paramount.
Is there something specifically different? Like, do they use, I mean, I know that there are all sorts of different technologies in film, different durometers of rubber, different durometers used depending upon the weather and how cold it is and what the actors' allergies might be.
Sometimes, yeah.
But I'm assuming right off the bat that the budgets for television are lower.
Yeah, pretty much. Like a lot of times you have to be more frugal. Like I know that on Star Trek they had to reuse pieces a lot of times, like reuse a big cowl and then they would just put a new face piece on.
Whereas in the movies they just use a
might be
different
able
one
to-
every day of shooting.
It's a lot of times, yeah. So it gets technically hard sometimes. You have to be creative on how you kind of design makeups to...
Oh, you also, on television, I think sometimes casting happens late in the process, or it can, because you're doing a new show every 7 days, every 6 days, every 8 days kind of thing. So you sometimes perhaps don't have the luxury of custom fitting all your appliances to a specific actor, but have to make them able to apply across a wide swath of humanity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of generic appliances that are like, especially when you get these shows that have like tons and tons of aliens, whether it's V or Star Trek or...
Babylon 5
or anything. I mean, they have to have like populate a spaceship with aliens.
Do you have a moment in television makeup where the first time you got to see something of yours, watch it in a regular lineup on television, you were really excited?
The first TV show that I ever worked on was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I didn't know you worked on Buffy.
I worked on the 6th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was like one of my first jobs out here. I was the lowest dude on the totem pole.
So did you work on Hush? Is that
No,
sixth season?
it was after Hush. It was an episode where they have all these egg pods in Spike's bedroom down in his cave or whatever, and these little creatures come out. And there was like a big creature and they were hunting it down.
Is this the post Moving Network season?
to UPN, yeah.
Right, okay. That's the only season I don't know very well.
Oh, well, there you go. That was the first time I got to see anything I worked on.
Wait, so how was that, right? So you worked on it.
It was the coolest thing ever. Like, it was my first time on set, a real set. It was my first time working with a lot of these really big makeup artists like Joel Harlow and Todd McIntosh. And I met a lot of really great guys that really helped me out a lot in the beginning of my career. And that was pretty cool. And I still think Buffy's a pretty, epic show as far as like Creature of the Week kind of stuff. And
Buffy is amazing. Yeah. Buffy was really amazing. They had a lot of fun with their makeup. They had a lot of fun within their budget. And because the drama was so good and the writing was so good, you often didn't mind that sometimes the makeups were a little bit crunchy.
I mean, that's not of the fault of the designers or the makeup artists. A lot of times that's fault just because of the amount of time that
Exactly,
they had.
exactly. And that's totally understandable.
Well, but it gave the show a certain feel that worked for it.
Right.
Like, I think that's what you were trying to. Yeah.
Yes,
But I
exactly.
think in that era, there was two really awesome shows, which I think are kind of the pinnacle of the creature or alien of the week shows.
Wait a minute.
It was Buffy and
Xena?
no,
X-Files.
no.
Babylon
X-Files
5.
was before.
Babylon 5.
Babylon.
I think that Babylon 5 had some of the most diverse aliens and some of the most well-done aliens of any pretty much like episodic
Even
shows.
more than Deep Space Nine.
Oh, a lot
in
more
terms
than
of,
Deep
like,
Space Mine. No, they went
or
way
Stargate?
farther. In fact, actually, on Prop Store, Babylon 5 makeups come up frequently. There's a lot of them out there, and the Star Trek universe, really, the joke applies. It's mostly bumps on the forehead.
Forehead of the week.
Ears and forehead.
Right, there's a lot of bumps on the forehead makeups, except for the Ferengi, and I have deep problems with the Ferengi as a stylized makeup.
Don't like the ears, huh?
I have a problem with the Ferengis. At any rate,
But the profits. but the rules of acquisition are
At any rate.
ways to live by.
Babylon 5, some really innovative makeups, some really cool stuff going on.
And incidentally, Buffy and Babylon 5 all came out of a company called Optic Nerve, which at that time was owned by the original owners, John Volich, and I think Everett Broll had left, but it was John Volich's Optic Nerve.
What was that?
Something fell off of a shelf. It's all good. It looks like a knee pad. It looks like a cup,
No,
actually.
an actual athletic cup fell from somewhere onto somewhere. Only in my cave does something drop and it turns out to be an athletic cup.
I must have dropped that. Sorry.
So wait a second. So you said these guys were really encouraging to you. So, I mean, when I talk to makeup people, they often have a story about reaching out to someone they admired and getting a response. That it seems that within the makeup and prosthetic community, there is a real ethic of reaching down and giving a helping hand to young designers. Is that,
I
was
think
that
a
your
lot
experience?
I think a lot of that started like back with Dick Smith. He
was legendarily
shared
generous.
Everything. There was no secrets.
The famous book, the Dick Smith
The Dick
books.
Smith course and his books that he wrote. Yeah.
I was talking to Guillermo del Toro and Greg Nicotero, and both of them have stories about being teenagers and writing letters to Dick Smith.
That's how I got the
and
course.
getting a letter back with things like, "Oh, here's one of my appliances from a movie that I worked on."
awesome.
God.
Yeah.
I mean, writing a letter
And
goes a
going
long
to
way.
Larchmont, New York, to his shop, and going downstairs, and there's Reagan, you know, the spinning head makeup from Exorcist and stuff like. And you wrote to Dick Smith.
I wrote to Dick Smith. I got the course when I was in high school, I believe.
Can you explain what the course is for people who don't know?
The Dick Smith course is basically like a telephone book size how to do everything, and it's a little bit on the advanced side. So you would have to write into Dick Smith and show him photos of your work, and when he thought that you kind of did enough that you can comprehend this course,
Then he would actually
then
sell it
you would
to
be
you?
allowed to buy it.
No way!
Yeah,
I
and
had
so-
no idea it was that.
So I had to write in, and I'd send him some pictures. He'd go, "Oh, well, these are okay. Show me something else." And so I'd have to make something else and send him a second set of pictures.
So wait a second, Frank.
Oh, okay, now you can buy it.
So Frank, in high school,
Yeah.
you're working on makeup, like prosthetic makeup in high school.
Yeah.
What was the tipping point? What was the thing that? I mean, that's a pretty directed thing to get to in high school.
I like monster movies. I grew up watching horror movies and sci-fi movies with my dad, and I just wanted to build this stuff. And it was things like the making of Thriller. Like
Oh yeah.
I still have the VHS tape from when I recorded it off of HBO. That it's like so worn out and so staticky, but I still have that tape. And I watched it a million times, and I saw Rick Baker and all these people, and Greg Canham and Tony Gardner and all these guys building these great zombies, and it just showed how they did it. And that was kind of the first time I think there's a lot of people in my generation that was their tipping point.
And so, I mean, so Dick Smith set a standard. I mean, in a way, just by being encouraging and available to a whole generation. I mean, Rick Baker has that story about Dick Smith, etc. He creates an ethos among the makeup community, it would seem.
Well, it's some people follow. A lot of people follow. A lot of people are very helpful. It's kind of like your 10 commandments of making, like share,
Right.
And like let everybody know. Because just because I tell you how I make a mold or something like that doesn't mean you can go take my job. But it does no harm to share that with somebody, because you might find something that's a little tricky, and you might go, "Hey, I did this, but I did it different. It works better." and then that makes everybody better.
Right.
Some people are secretive, and that usually comes from insecurity, and artists are, always insecure. So there's,
And the whole time at ILM, I only ran into a couple of people who were like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and one was really open about it. I said, "Do you mind if I take pictures of the thing you're doing?" And he said, "Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you everything I know about it." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, I know that's weird, but it's one of the things I get hired for a lot." And
Wow.
I said that I'm sad about that, and he was like, "Yeah, I know."
all right.
I know.
How do you? Well,
I had to applaud his honesty instead of being, because on the other front there was another guy I ran into who was just shitty when you drifted into his territory. I don't say anything more than that because it was really, these are outliers, right?
Yeah.
But he had a thing he got hired for a lot, and if you did anything approaching that material, he'd be really uncomfortable about it.
But that seemed like the kind of the status quo for the effects industry for a long time, up until fairly recently, right? Like if somebody figured out a new way to make the foam look shiny and metallic, then they wouldn't share that because that's a competitive advantage.
There are still some secretive techniques. I know of people who work at some big shops, and there are technologies that I know about that even the people within those shops have specifically signed a piece of paper saying we can't talk about the fact that we use that technology.
And they do a lot of research. It takes a lot of R&D.
And some of these things cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop, and the machines cost a ton of money, etc. I understand that.
It can be competitive, like in terms of getting contracts. So,
but that's such an upper echelon thing.
Yes,
like
yes.
for the like people that want to get started in
Yes.
effects, or people that want to just learn some pretty advanced things. All of the information is out there.
It really
and
is.
everybody shares all of their different ways of doing things because there's never one way to do everything.
So what's the market like now in terms of TV shows using and hiring makeup artists to do creature effects? Are there still jobs like they were back in the late 90s? And
I don't know that there's any like real big creature shows going on now. I know that there's like American Horror Story has a lot of stuff, and Falling Skies is doing a great job. A guy named Todd Masters has a shop down here in LA and up in Vancouver, and they are actually doing a lot of the CG stuff along with it, like the blinking eyes and stuff like that, to augment their makeups. And I think that that's kind of a forward-thinking approach to, well, a lot of our makeups get CG augmented anyway, so why don't we provide that service so that way we at least have control over the final look of it,
Got it.
which is great. And I love the work that comes out of Todd Masters' shop. It's really, really top-notch stuff. He did like Slither, which is one of my favorite
Slither.
underrated movies ever.
very cool.
Yeah. I don't know what else is like real big makeup-y stuff that's going on now.
Sorry, I'm texting, but
That's okay.
you won't believe what I'm just about to send you. We'll talk about it after.
Wow. And after the podcast, Adam's going to post a brief apology online for both texting. We're going to have to establish rules about texting during the podcast. So earlier on you were talking about appliances.
Yeah.
And you don't mean refrigerator.
No. Yeah, I mean, this is...
Prosthetics.
So when you say appliance, do you mean the whole makeup, or do you just mean like if somebody needs bigger cheekbones and the dots in the forehead from Star Trek or whatever?
It's
Is
any
it
of
the
those
whole
things.
thing?
It could be
Any and all.
It could be a tiny little scar. It could be your full face wrapped in rubber.
Okay.
I mean, for Tim Curry's makeup for Legend, I think only his lower lip is visible.
Something
like they even had
Wow, really?
prosthetics on his eyelets.
Yeah.
Same thing for Dick Smith's Dustin Hoffman makeup in Little Big Man.
Yeah.
Pretty much every part of his face is covered.
Dick Smith made little eyelids that were like kind of folding in on themselves so that when he would blink, they would fold back under.
Do you know, there's actually, I don't know who did it, but there's some amazing old age makeup done for a marginally okay film that I worked on, Bicentennial Man.
Oh, that was Greg Cannon. Greg Cannon did those.
That
Those were
makeup on
awesome.
Sam Neill, which were apparently some of the gel-filled silicone.
Yeah, those are early gel filled.
So they moved
Yeah.
with Sam Neill's face in a way I've never seen makeup move. Those are astonishing.
Those are
good
Greg
makeups.
Cannon did those makeups. Yeah, him and his crew, and I'm sure there's a lot of people, but Greg Cannon shop did all that
So
stuff.
when you're watching
Beautiful
a movie
age
or a
makeups.
TV show, what are the things you look for to say, oh, that's a really good job with that makeup, or that the way they made that skin move?
The first, I'm just saying as a layperson on this, I always notice if the hair is bad. and it's really one of those weird, like, some people spend a lot on the makeup and then not a lot on the hair, and you're like, what the hell are you guys doing?
A lot of that comes from producers and stuff. You build a makeup. Let's say a makeup for a movie might cost $8 or $10 to make, like, just to build it, right?
And that's dozens of hours or hundreds of hours, depends.
It depends what. I'm just ballpark, right?
Spitball.
And then you go, and then it's going to cost another $4,000 for hair, and they go, what? But a custom wig, like a good custom wig, costs $3,000-$4,000 depending on length and color and all this.
It's not a thing you can just. It's not a thing you can do quickly. You just have to put the hair in plugs, right?
No,
or you get a net and apply it, and
it's
a bunch of different ways.
There's so many different ways to do it, but it's like really expensive to get good wigs, like really expensive.
And they really are. Like, when they're bad, they are bad.
Yeah, they make or break a makeup.
So
really.
is Scarlett Johansson's hair in the Avengers movies? Is it a wig or is it just a dye job? Can you tell?
I do not.
I watched this last night, and it distracted me through the entire movie.
I'll ask her next time I see
Man,
her.
her hair looks really weird.
I wish.
Is this?
I don't know. Well, I mean, nowadays there's this this CG company called Lola that anytime you see Lola in the end credits, that means that they've touched up makeups or touched up actors.
Wow.
That company specifically fixes makeup and fixes actors.
We're a long way from the expensive digital fix of thickening Kevin Costner's hair from Waterworld.
No, anytime I see like really cool makeups in a movie, I always check the credits to see if Lola's in there, because then they may replace or fix bad edges.
Wow. That's amazing.
But
there's still, makeup is still one of those industries that hasn't been super affected by CG, right?
Well,
There's still a lot of shops doing it.
By HD.
I mean, it is being affected.
It is and it isn't. I mean, you got to every job has to progress. I mean, you could say the same thing about model makers. Like, have model makers been affected by CG? Hell yeah. So is makeup, but there's still models being built.
There are still models being built, but maybe 10% of the amount that was being built 10 years ago, and maybe 3% of what was being built 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the model making industry
You could say the same thing for big giant remote control creatures.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Animatronics too.
There's a handful
almost
of people,
totally gone.
There's a handful of people like Guillermo that are still like, really champions of building practical monsters.
Well, and I was there's a shot from Pacific Rim when the fist punches all the way through the building and then tips over the cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It tips the Newton's cradle.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And that was a practical shot up at ILM.
Really?
So when they shot that, he called me up and said, "You want to come on up?" And it's all my friends who built it, and I spent the day on set. It was like a homecoming. It was really fun. And he said specifically, "I'd love to put more practical effects into this movie, but I can't afford any more."
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a way, and there's a cost savings in CG and getting that, because even though it was a practical shot, they had to add in a bunch of CG to make it work. They didn't have the Jaeger fist. They had a green stand-in that they then composited the digital fist onto.
Well, I mean, but to me as a film goer, like that. Like the merger of the two worlds is a wonderful thing, because we're getting to a place now where I can't look at it and tell whether it's CG or practical,
and that's wonderful. And that is like Peter Jackson, Guillermo, Jon Favreau,
J.J.
Abrams, all directors who really understand the mix of those things and what they lend to the storytelling, to the actors, and to the audience's experience.
Yeah.
And I love that Abrams is saying that he's doing much more practical stuff out on Star Wars.
Have you seen the drone shots where people are flying over the set?
I want to visit the Millennium Falcon. I want to stand on the Millennium Falcon.
I'm coming with you when you do
When I was in New Zealand talking to Peter Jackson, he was like, "So yeah, I was in London and I was standing in the Millennium Falcon talking to J.J. Abrams," and I was like,
Oh man.
Oh boy.
That's cool.
"Tell J.J. Abrams I have Akbar. If they need some calamarians for the new movie, I've got the cat. Frank's got the mold. JJ, we will send you the mold. You can just use it."
Sure. You want to send him a mold?
Technically, you should hire Frank, but if for some reason you have a problem with Frank, I'll just send you something. Come on. You can't resculpt the calamarians. Phil Tippett's original sculpt of Akbar is the best ever, and every attempt to resculpt it is terrible.
It ends up with these weird jowl.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Scrotum Neck. Frank, your new podcast is called Scrotum Neck.
No. Neck. The worst villain ever.
It's what the action figure name was originally before they changed it to something
Prolapse head.
Yes.
Frank.
Jeez,
Creature
Geeks, right?
Creature
Geeks.
Hosted Untested.
Yeah, when are you? What do you? At this time in the past, when we were recording this, have you thought about what the schedule is going to be yet, or are you going to kind of play it by ear while you
Maybe
start?
one
out?
a year.
That sounds good.
I think our plan is to do one every other week, and we're going to start off with like 6 or 8 of them
Okay.
for a season, and see how those things go, and see what kind of feedback we get, and
Who
then
do you
we'll
have lined
pick
up?
up.
A cast of all-star guests.
I have a laundry list of people that I need to call.
Oh, well, you can just put them on the spot, right? No,
Yeah, I'm
don't,
gonna put
don't do that. Don't do that.
Steve Johnson, I'm going to text you as soon as I get off of this thing.
All right.
No, I'm
Looking
gonna,
forward to that.
Steve will be probably one of the first people. in the buzz.
You know, the Behind the Mist tour is coming to the Nokia again in December.
Yeah.
and we're going to do the same. We're going to do the same after.
Is it going to be me, you, Steve Johnson, and Max Landis just having a good time?
crazy? Yes.
Yeah.
Again.
Will I get to sit behind Rick Baker again?
Did he come to? Oh, he did come
he
to
sat
that
right in
party.
front of
That's
me.
right. Yeah, that was awesome.
Wow.
Anyway, yes, the same thing will happen again this year.
Cool.
It'll be on tested.com/podcast. We'll tweet and post it and all that
Yes,
stuff. You can
yes,
find it on the site. Thank you for coming by, Frank.
Thanks for having me.
And,
It's always fun over here.
Can't wait to hear the podcast.
Me too.
And we're going to have more of Frank in the cave because he's going to be spending more time up in Northern California.
Yeah,
and
up here doing a couple more things.
Yeah.
We have a lot of presented by Tested premium members featuring Frank coming up if they're not already on the site by now even.
Awesome.
So thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another edition of Still Entitled. See you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.